My name is Princess Yana, and I need to tell you about the day I stopped being a princess and became something far more dangerous in the eyes of my family. I need to tell you about the moment I chose truth over comfort, justice over privilege, and the lives of women I'd never met over the golden cage I was born into. This isn't a story with a happy ending. This isn't a fairy tale where the princess saves everyone and lives happily ever after. This is a story about what it costs to stand up for what's right when everyone around you benefits from what's wrong. This is about sacrifice, consequences, and the price of having a conscience in a world that would prefer you stay silent. I'm sitting here today, thousands of miles from the palace where I grew up, unable to return to my homeland, estranged from most of my family, living under constant security concerns because there are people who want me dead, and I would make the same choice again in a heartbeat. Because some things are worth losing everything for. Before I go any further, before I take you into the darkest moments of this journey, I need to ask something of you. If you believe that women's rights matter, that speaking truth to power matters, that standing up against injustice even when it costs you everything matters, then please subscribe to this channel. Share this story. Let the world know that there are women fighting battles you never hear about, paying prices you can't imagine, refusing to be silenced no matter what they take from us. Your support, your voice joining ours, that's what keeps us going when everything seems hopeless. Please be part of this movement. Subscribe, share, and stand with women who are still fighting for their basic human rights. Now let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment when I first understood that my privilege was built on the suffering of others, and that understanding changed everything. I was born into one of the most powerful families in Saudi Arabia. From my first breath, I lived in luxury most people can't even imagine. Palaces with hundreds of rooms, servants who catered to every whim, private jets, designer clothes, jewelry worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. I had everything money could buy, and I had no idea what it truly cost. I was raised to be ornamental. That's the truth of it. I was educated, yes, but only to a point. I was taught languages, art, music, etiquette, all the skills necessary to be a proper royal wife someday, to represent the family well at official functions, to look beautiful and say the right things. But I was never supposed to think too deeply. I was never supposed to question. I was never supposed to care about anything beyond the palace walls. For the first 23 years of my life, I didn't. I accepted my role. I enjoyed my privileges. I lived in a beautiful bubble where everything was perfect, because I never looked closely enough to see the cracks. Then I met Amira. Amira was a new servant in the palace, assigned to assist the female members of the family. She was 25 years old, quiet, efficient, always keeping her eyes down as servants were expected to do. I barely noticed her at first. She was just another face in the background of my privileged existence. But one day, I came back to my chambers earlier than expected and found Amira sitting on the floor, crying silently, her shoulders shaking. She didn't hear me come in. When I spoke her name, she jumped up in terror, immediately bowing and apologizing, wiping her tears. "I'm so sorry, Your Highness. I should not have been sitting. I should not have been emotional. Please forgive me. It won't happen again." Something in her voice, in the desperation of her apology, made me pause. I had never really looked at servants as people before. They were just there, part of the furniture of palace life. But in that moment, I saw Amira as a human being who was suffering. "What's wrong?" I asked, and my question seemed to shock her. "Nothing, Your Highness. Everything is fine. I apologize for my weakness." "I'm not going to punish you," I said, surprising myself with the words. "I just want to know why you're crying." She looked at me for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether to trust me. Then slowly, the story came out. Amira had been married at 16 to a man she'd never met, a man chosen by her father. Her husband was violent, abusive, cruel. He beat her regularly. He controlled every aspect of her life. He had taken all her documents, her passport, everything that might allow her to leave. When she tried to get help, when she went to the authorities, they told her she needed her husband's permission to file a complaint. When she went to her family, they told her she was bringing shame on them and should be a better wife. She had finally escaped after 8 years of abuse, fleeing with nothing but the clothes on her back. But escaping meant she was now considered a runaway wife, which made her vulnerable to arrest. She had no legal rights, no protection, no way to support herself. The only work she could find was this position in the palace, arranged through distant family connections, where she worked 18-hour days for almost no pay, living in constant fear that her husband would find her. As she told me this, tears streaming down her face, I felt something break open inside me. This woman was only 2 years older than me. We had been born in the same country, under the same sky, but our lives could not have been more different. I had everything. She had nothing. And the system that gave me such privilege was the same system that had trapped her in hell. "Why doesn't someone help you?" I asked, and I heard how naive I sounded even as the words left my mouth. "Who would help me, Your Highness?" she said softly. "I'm nobody. I have no power, no money, no family who will support me. In the eyes of the law, I'm my husband's property. I ran away from my owner. That's how they see it." That conversation lasted maybe 20 minutes, but it changed my entire life. For the first time, I couldn't look away from the truth. For the first time, I couldn't pretend that everything was fine in my beautiful golden world. I started asking questions. I started paying attention to things I had never noticed before. How many of the female servants in the palace seemed frightened, defeated, trapped? How many had stories like Amira's? How did the system work that kept these women in such vulnerable positions? The more I learned, the more horrified I became. This wasn't just about individual bad men or unfortunate circumstances. This was systemic. This was built into the very structure of society. Women were legal minors their entire lives, first under the control of their fathers, then their husbands, then their sons, if they were widowed. Women couldn't travel, work, study, receive health care, or make major life decisions without male permission. Women who tried to escape abuse had nowhere to go, no legal recourse, no protection. And my family, the royal family I belonged to, they were part of maintaining this system. They benefited from it. They enforced it. I tried to talk to my mother about it. She looked at me with sad eyes and said, "Yana, this is how things have always been. This is our culture, our tradition. It's not our place to question it." "But it's wrong," I insisted. "Can't you see it's wrong? These women are suffering." "Many women are suffering all over the world," she replied. "We can't fix everything. And besides, you must understand, if women had complete freedom, society would fall apart. There must be order, structure, rules." "Rules that treat women as property?" I challenged. "You're young," she said, her tone becoming cooler. "You don't understand the complexities of these matters. I suggest you focus on your studies and stop filling your head with these troubling ideas." I tried talking to my father, but he wouldn't even have the conversation. "This is not a topic for you to concern yourself with," he said dismissively. "You have duties as a princess. Focus on those." My older brother laughed at me. "You've been spending too much time with the servants," he said. "They're filling your head with nonsense. These women claim abuse, but most of them are lying to get sympathy. And even if some husbands are harsh, that's their right. A man must control his household." I felt so alone, so isolated in my understanding that something was fundamentally broken in the world I lived in. But I couldn't unknow what I now knew. I couldn't unsee what I had seen. Amira's tear-stained face haunted me, and as I paid more attention, I saw her in so many women. The servant who flinched when a male family member entered the room. The young girl being prepared for marriage to a man 40 years older than her. The educated woman who couldn't pursue her career because her brother refused to give permission. I started using my position to help in small ways. I would sneak money to servants who needed it. I would intervene when I saw women being treated cruelly by male family members. I started secretly meeting with women's rights activists, people who were working underground to help women escape abuse and fight for legal reforms. Those activists opened my eyes even further. They told me stories that made me physically ill. Women who had been burned alive by their families for refusing arranged marriages. Girls as young as 12 being sold to old men as brides. Women being imprisoned for the crime of being raped. Women who tried to escape abuse being forcibly returned to their abusers by the police. And I realized that my small acts of charity, while they might help individuals here and there, were drops in an ocean of suffering. If I really wanted to make a difference, I needed to do something bigger. Something that would draw attention to these issues. Something that would force change. So I made a decision that would destroy my entire life as I knew it. I decided to speak out publicly. The activists warned me. If you do this, there's no going back, they said. Your family will never forgive you. You'll be putting yourself in danger. Are you sure you want to do this? I wasn't sure. I was terrified. But I knew I had to try. I started small, creating an anonymous social media account where I shared stories of women's suffering, called for legal reforms, criticized the guardianship system that kept women subjugated. The posts went viral. People were paying attention. But anonymity wasn't enough. To really create change, I needed to use my position, my name, my platform. So one day, I posted a video where I revealed who I was. Princess Yana, member of the royal family, speaking out against the treatment of women in Saudi Arabia. I talked about specific cases. I named names. I challenged the laws and customs that oppressed women. I called for immediate reforms. The response was immediate and devastating. Within hours, my father called me to his office. His face was purple with rage. "What have you done?" he roared. "Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? The embarrassment? The shame?" I told the truth, I said, my voice shaking but determined. I said what needed to be said. "You betrayed your family," he shouted. "You betrayed your country. You've made us look barbaric to the world." "Maybe we need to look barbaric," I shot back, "because what we're doing to women is barbaric." He slapped me then, hard across the face. My father, who had never raised his hand to me in my entire life, struck me with such force that I tasted blood. "You are no longer my daughter," he said, his voice now cold and deadly calm. "You have 1 hour to leave this palace. Take nothing with you that belongs to this family. Your bank accounts are frozen. Your passport will be confiscated. You are cut off from everything. You wanted to speak for the oppressed? Now you can experience what it's like to be one of them." I was escorted to my rooms by guards, given exactly 1 hour to pack a single bag of personal items, and then thrown out of the palace like a piece of garbage. 23 years of living in luxury, and I was on the street with one bag, no money, no documents, nowhere to go. The activists who had worked with me took me in, hiding me in safe houses, moving me frequently because it wasn't safe for me to stay in one place. My family issued a statement saying I was mentally unstable, that I had been brainwashed by radicals, that nothing I said should be taken seriously. But the damage was done. My video had been seen by millions. Other women started speaking out, emboldened by my example. International media picked up the story. Pressure started building on the government to reform the guardianship laws. And that's when things got really dangerous. I started receiving death threats, hundreds of them. People saying they would kill me for dishonoring Islam, for dishonoring the kingdom, for being a traitor. Some of the threats were specific enough that the activists knew they were credible. Then one of my friends, a fellow activist named Noor, was arrested. She was held for 3 weeks without charges, tortured, finally released with a warning to stop her activities. She showed me the marks on her body from the torture, the burns, the bruises. "They asked about you," she whispered. "They wanted to know where you were hiding. I didn't tell them, but Yana, you need to leave the country. They're coming for you." The activists arranged for me to be smuggled out of Saudi Arabia. I won't go into the details of how it was done because those methods are still being used to help other women escape, and I won't compromise them. But it was terrifying. I had to travel hidden in vehicles, cross borders illegally, trust people I didn't know with my life. I made it to Europe eventually, where I applied for asylum. The process took months. During that time, I lived in limbo, constantly afraid that I would be found and forcibly returned. I had nightmares about being sent back, about what would happen to me if I was. My asylum was finally granted, and I thought maybe I could breathe. But the threats didn't stop. If anything, they intensified. My family publicly disowned me. My mother, who I had hoped might understand, went on television and said I was dead to her, that I had brought unbearable shame to the family. That hurt more than anything else, more than losing my home, my money, my position, knowing that my mother chose the system over her own daughter, that she would rather pretend I was dead than acknowledge that I was fighting for something right. I've been living in exile now for 6 years. 6 years of looking over my shoulder, of jumping at sudden noises, of vetting everyone I meet to make sure they're not trying to get close to me to hurt me. 6 years of missing my homeland, my culture, my language spoken around me every day. 6 years of not being able to see my younger sisters, who I pray are safe, and who I hope might someday understand why I did what I did. But in these 6 years, I've also seen progress. Slowly, painfully slowly, but progress nonetheless. Some of the guardianship laws have been reformed. Women can now travel without male permission in some circumstances. Women can now attend sporting events. These seem like small things to people in free countries, but they're huge victories for Saudi women. I like to think my speaking out contributed to that change, even in a small way. I like to think that all the women who spoke out, who protested, who refused to be silent, we collectively created enough pressure that the government had to respond. But the fight is far from over. Women are still arrested for activism. Women are still subjected to abuse with no legal recourse. Women are still treated as second-class citizens in their own country. There is so much work left to do. I continue to speak out from exile. I run an organization now that helps Saudi women escape abuse. We have a network of volunteers inside the country who provide safe houses, money, documents, whatever women need to get out. We help them navigate the asylum process in whatever country they reach. We provide support as they build new lives far from home. Every woman we help escape is a victory. Every woman who finds safety and freedom, who gets to make her own choices about her own life. That's why I do this. That's why I gave up everything. But I won't lie to you and say it doesn't hurt. It hurts every single day. I miss my family, even though they've rejected me. I miss my country, even though I can never return. I miss the life I had, even though I know it was built on injustice. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. On dark nights when the loneliness feels crushing, when the threats feel overwhelming, when the weight of everything I've lost presses down on me, I wonder if I should have just stayed quiet, lived my comfortable life, enjoyed my privileges. But then I think of Amira, the woman whose suffering first opened my eyes. I think of Noor, who was tortured for standing up for women's rights. I think of the 12-year-old girls being forced into marriage. I think of the women trapped in abusive homes with no way out. I think of all the suffering that continues because people with power choose silence and comfort over justice. And I know I made the right choice. I know I would make it again. Because here's what I've learned in these 6 years. Privilege without purpose is just gilded chains. Comfort that requires others to suffer is just cruelty in disguise. Silence in the face of injustice is complicity, no matter how good your reasons for staying silent might seem. I was born into incredible privilege. I didn't earn it, didn't deserve it, just happened to be born into the right family. And for 23 years, I accepted that privilege without question, without thinking about what it cost others. When I finally saw the cost, when I finally understood that my comfort was built on others' oppression, I had a choice. I could look away, close my eyes again, convince myself it wasn't my responsibility, or I could use my privilege, my platform, my voice to fight for change. I chose to fight. And yes, I lost everything, but I gained something too. I gained my integrity. I gained my self-respect. I gained the knowledge that I'm on the right side of history, even if history isn't ready to acknowledge that yet. I gained sisters all over the world, women fighting the same battles in different countries, women who understand what it means to stand up and lose everything. I gained purpose that goes beyond my own comfort. I gained a life that actually means something. The price was high, higher than I could have imagined when I first started down this path. But some things are worth any price. Freedom is worth it. Justice is worth it. Women's lives are worth it. I tell my story not for sympathy. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I made my choice with open eyes, and I accept the consequences. I tell my story because there are still women trapped in the system I escaped from. Women who need to know they're not alone. Women who need to know that people are fighting for them. Women who need hope that change is possible. I tell my story because there are people all over the world who benefit from unjust systems and choose silence to maintain their comfort. And I want them to feel uncomfortable. I want them to question their choices. I want them to realize that silence is a choice, and it's a choice that has consequences for others. I tell my story because young women in Saudi Arabia, in my family, in positions of privilege, need to know that they have another option. They don't have to accept the world as it is. They can fight to make it better, even if that fight costs them everything. My name is Princess Yana, though I haven't used that title in years. I am an exile, an activist, a voice for women who cannot speak. I am a daughter rejected by her family, a sister separated from her siblings, a former princess living in modest circumstances thousands of miles from home. But I am also free. Free to speak my truth. Free to fight for what I believe in. Free to choose my own path. And that freedom, that agency over my own life and voice, is worth more than all the palaces and jewels and privileges I left behind. If you are someone living in privilege built on others' oppression, I challenge you to open your eyes. Look at the system around you. Who benefits? Who suffers? What role do you play? If you are someone suffering under oppression, I want you to know you are not alone. There are people fighting for you. Change is possible, even when it seems impossible. Hold on. Keep hoping. Keep fighting if you can. Keep surviving if that's all you can do right now. If you are someone who cares about justice, about human rights, about women's equality, I'm asking you to do more than just care. Speak out. Support organizations doing this work. Amplify the voices of women who are fighting oppression. Make it harder for unjust systems to continue operating in the shadows. The work is far from over. Women in Saudi Arabia and around the world are still fighting for basic rights that should never have to be fought for. They need allies. They need support. They need people who are willing to use their voices, their resources, their platforms to demand change. Subscribe to this channel and be part of this movement. Share these stories so more people understand what's at stake. Support women's rights organizations with your time or money if you can. Speak up when you see injustice, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs you something. Because that's how change happens. Not through one princess giving up her palace, but through millions of people deciding that justice matters more than comfort, that freedom matters more than maintaining the status quo, that human rights are worth fighting for even when the fight is hard. I gave up everything to fight for women's rights. I would do it again, but I can't do it alone. None of us can fight alone. We need each other. We need a global movement of people who refuse to accept oppression as normal, who refuse to stay silent in the face of injustice. Will you join us? Will you add your voice to ours? Will you stand with the women who are still fighting, still suffering, still hoping for a better world? The choice is yours, just like it was mine 6 years ago. Choose wisely. Choose bravely. Choose justice. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for caring enough to watch this video. And please, please, don't let this be where your involvement ends. Subscribe, share, speak out, support. Be part of the change. For Amira, for Noor, for every woman still trapped, still fighting, still hoping. We will not stop. We will not be silenced. We will not give up until every woman is free. Join us. The fight continues.